Hello and welcome. It's such an honor and a pleasure for me today to introduce to all of you Swami Mahesh, who is the founder and team leader of SIA International. Born in India, he had a series of psychic experiences from an early age that guided him on the path of yoga and spirituality and the connection to his guru, Swami Satyananda Saraswati, in 1994. After serving his guru's mission in various capacity, he became a wandering yogi. He is the first wandering yogi to conduct yoga program on all the 7 continents of the world. He has conducted several workshops and retreats on yoga and tantra, including several at leading universities, including our own Harvard and other universities in the Boston area. He has a bachelor's in engineering and a master's in yoga philosophy. And he is a specialist in several fields, and his special area of interest includes the advanced aspects of yoga and tantra related to prana, nadi, chakra, and kundalini. Through his experiential understanding combined with the study of classical texts of yoga and tantra and a rational approach to ancient spiritual wisdom, he is able to present some of those advanced and esoteric knowledge in a down-to-earth style. Swamiji, welcome to Lokvani. Namaste.
Namaskar ji. Namaskar Ranjani ji.
My goodness, what an honor to meet somebody who has a degree in engineering and degree in divine engineering. So it is just amazing to see that, Swamiji. So Swamiji, I mean, it's always something that amazes me, how somebody who is starting a life with engineering suddenly decides to not pursue the materialistic path, but go into spirituality. How did that happen with you?
Well, to tell you honestly, engineering was like whiling away my time because I had to wait for the right moment. I had a lot of experiences from my childhood, I would say, that was guiding me towards this path of yoga and spirituality. And I could also see my guru in my dreams, but I did not know where that guru is in this world. So only when I was in my second year of college that I was clear that who is my guru. And then ultimately everything worked out and I moved into the field of yoga. So engineering was, I would say, accidental, but because I had time, so I did it. I enjoyed it. I was always happy opening up things when I was a young boy. So I pursued that interest, but then opening your own mind and consciousness is something more powerful and amazing.
That's amazing, Swamiji. So, is it by just some Purvajanma Karma that people, I mean, everybody needs to get to that enlightenment mode. How does a soul like yourself get more lucky than the rest of us to be able to, go on this path in this way? What is it that makes that happen?
I would say there are two factors in that. One is definitely Purvajanma Karmas, that we all have impressions from the past lives that we carry forward. And then the second important thing is Sankalpa, that do you pick up that karma or that part that you have experienced and you pursue that forward, because it's easy to get lost in this worldly desires and all that. But if the Sankalpa is strong, then you move on to the path. So I had to make a Sankalpa. So two things. One is the unconscious factor, which is not in our control. So there are so many people who start life very ordinary, but they are just pulled into that spiritual field. So that unconscious factor was there. That was my Purva Janma Karma. And then a Sankalpa. I had to make a decision that yes, I want to pursue this. So immediately after my engineering was over, things just opened up and I decided, yes, this is the path I want to follow.
Fantastic, fantastic. And along that path, I would like to ask for enlightenment. Is it required to give up the world and become, an unattached Swamiji? Or there are people who continue to live in, pursuing both paths, the normal materialistic and the path of enlightenment?
You see, there are two things in that again, because the enlightenment, or let's call it some divine guidance or insight or intuition, it happens. So we just call it the grace of the divine consciousness that guides us into that experience. After that, it is in Gita, it has been said beautifully, Loka Sangraha, that if you have that experience, then you want to help other people also. So then for a lot of people, it's easy to follow either sannyas path or the path of renunciation and then help more people rather than getting involved into family. So for some people, it's a good idea if they want to pursue the path to have vairagya and then follow the path deeply. Or if they want to stay in their family life and all that, then also it's possible because yoga is available to everybody, meditation, there are masters who can guide you. So it's not that somebody has to renounce, but mostly those who renounce, those are the people who had some very deep insight or a powerful glimpse that guided them into that path. So it's of course again a matter of choice, but it's not necessary to give up the world to experience enlightenment, or we call it moksha, because nobody goes out of the world to experience. You have to go inside. So whether you are in the family, and there are some great masters like in the tradition of Swami Paramahansa Yogananda, Lahiri Mahasaya was a family member. He had a family life, but his sadhana was always important for him. So you can keep that focus, and of course you have obligations, you fulfill that also. So it does not clash or contrast.
There is not a clash or contrast. That is really, really, really beautiful to see that. So the question I have then is that for people who are starting out, in thinking about maybe the spiritual path, especially in the West, there are many that don't have that, what I would say, that strong connection to some of our traditions. Where would you suggest they start, even though they know there is this Hindu thing, and yoga has become, I know, a good vehicle for many people, but where would you suggest that they start their spiritual journey?
I would say starting with yoga is always a good idea, and then looking into the philosophical aspect and not connecting yoga with any religion, because yoga is the science of mind and consciousness. Whether you are born in any country or you want to follow any belief system, that is immaterial. Because if we look at the definition from Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which is taken as the classical text, it is saying that yoga's chitta vritti nirodha. To stop all mental modification is yoga. So then you have that stillness of the mind. So in that stillness, even all the belief system, everything that you count as God or religion, that also stops. Only then you come face to face with your own consciousness. So yoga helps you to kind of bypass all these additional distractions. So yoga is a spiritual science. Of course, any religion that a person wants to follow, that can help to focus the mind, but eventually that also has to be given up, or that is just spontaneously given up, and then you are in face to face with consciousness. That is called aparokshanubhuti, a direct contact with consciousness. So yoga helps, meditation helps, and then I would suggest that reading some philosophical aspect of it without thinking that this is a Hindu religion thing, or this is, because you see, yoga science, of course, it has become very popular all over the world, and the American industry drove it to a crazy level into business side also, which is not a problem at all. But those who are sincere, they should pursue little more into yoga side, because people think yoga means some asana pranayam, but there is something more to it, meditation. There are the yamas and niyamas. So these are the supporting factors that will help the person to experience and explore the spiritual side of life. And it's part of Sanatan culture, the eternal religion, that we as human beings have the kind of, it's a cultural heritage that we have from the rishis, from the yogis. And it's in the Indian tradition that this knowledge has been preserved, and it is always available because of this guru-disciple relationship. So that continuity is there. So plug into some stream through maybe some yoga tradition, some yoga guru, and maybe you explore a little more, and that will help. In India, of course, we are lucky that we have the ashram system. So you can go to temple or you can go to ashram, you have the choice. In the West, it's not so easy. You only have church or you have the places of worship, but you don't easily have this kind of ashram system.
So ashram is for the learning of the spirituality. While so, how would you differentiate the two? Why would one go to a temple, and why would one go to an ashram?
Temples and places of worship, they are based on a religious belief. There is a belief system of a god, and then all the qualities of the god that they portray. And then there are certain rules, do's and don'ts that they will highlight. And then if they are little fanatic, then they'll say other religion, strict no, no, stay with your own religion. Whereas yoga is not like that. Yoga is to experience your own self in its true reality. So ashram system helps because it is not based on any belief system. It is based on service. It is based on kind of, let's say, an activity that is spiritual in orientation, not religious. And also in ashram system, there is a master, there is a guide who has experienced it and who can guide other people onto the path. So we need somebody who can guide people on the path of spiritual journey. And this is where ashram system plays a very important role. And in ashram system, proper ashram system, there is no division of caste or sex or gender or nationality, anything. But if you look into temples and churches and mosques, then there is a kind of a, it's an exclusive thing that only people of this faith can come in and they can follow. Whereas ashram is an open system. So this is what helps the mind to open up rather than getting narrowed down it's into a belief system.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I was going to ask you, but if you look at the Indian tradition, I mean, there are those four yogas, right? And there is definitely bhakti is a very important part. And also there are many different ways that, the great masters have been talking. There's Advaita, there's Vishishta Advaita, there is, all different kinds of things. Do you think they are in conflict with each other? I mean, a bhakti yoga person will tell, the ISKCON people tell you, go to the temple, worship. So how do they all come together? I assume it's all the great one. So where is the difference and where is the similarity to come together?
You see, the difference is again based on the belief system that bhakti will help or karma yoga will help. Some people say gyan yoga. And if you look into the Indian system, the Vedic system of the Sanatan culture, there has been a progressive evolution of thought. So in the Vedic system, it was like very strict that you had to learn the mantra, the right intonation and the chanting. But that becomes too dry because you also need to have bhakti. You also need so much time to devote to learn the mantras. But eventually, in the same stream, when we come to the stage of Mahabharata and particularly Srimad Bhagavad Gita, this is the first major transition that we see bhakti introduced in a very proper way. And it just opens up the path of spirituality to everybody. Whether you are a learned Brahmin or not, whether you have studied Vedas or not, you can just with your devotional energy flowing towards the divine, you can open up to bhakti. So bhakti and then Hatha Yoga, which is dealing with body, mind, then Raj Yoga that deals with mind and psyche. We are, as a human being, mixture of all this. We have body, we have mind, we have our emotions. And if we are able to integrate that together in a proper way, then that is the right path of yoga. So if any system is teaching all this in an integrated way, that would be the best way forward. But again, people have inclination either towards emotional side, so they like to follow bhakti. Nothing wrong with that, because if that gives them satisfaction, even that will lead to that ultimate experience. Because whether you want to climb Everest by going from the south end or the north end or jump from a helicopter on the top, the point is to reach the top. So there are so many paths, and that's why the opening mantras in Vedas itself says, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. The truth is one alone, but the learned talk about it in many different ways. So all different ways are good as long as the person stays on the path and does not kind of destroy any other path. So one of the Upanishad, it kind of hints this, that be like a honeybee to collect pollen from every other path that will help you to create this delight, the ras.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I think it's up to us to find our inner inclination, and probably we'll be guided towards that kind of yoga based on who we are as people. So
Yeah, there is normally like one major path of inclination, whether bhakti or the mind or Raj Yoga or some people like Karma Yoga, but no problem integrating other paths together because that will give the total personality to express itself.
beautiful,
And
beautiful.
this is what we studied and this is what we learned from our grand guru, Swami Shivananda also. His yoga was the yoga of head, hands, and the heart. So head is your intellect, Gyan Yoga. The heart is related to Bhakti Yoga, and hands is related to Karma Yoga. This is yoga.
This is yoga. That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. So, it is when I was reading your resume, one of the things that really fascinated me is Tantra, right? You have a specialty in that. I know it's hard to probably compress it in a real short thing, but people have, heard all different things about Tantra. And so, would you explain to our viewers what is the essence of Tantra and why it is so important as a path to enlightenment?
Sure. Uh, of course, you said it yourself. People have heard about Tantra, and if you don't know the real basis, then it's easy to be misled by what others think of Tantra. Tantra is basically made up of two words. Tan, that comes from the Sanskrit root, tanoti, which means expansion, opening up. And tra is related to liberation. So this tra comes from trayati, liberation. So liberation of energy to open up the consciousness into the higher field. And this is what Tantra is about, that we have one energy in our system, which is called Kundalini. Because as long as we are living, we are part of that cosmic energy flow called the Mahaprana. So this Mahaprana is part of the energy system. And we have a consciousness within us. But because of its mental limitation, we are very limited in our understanding. But if we open up the energy, if we liberate the energy from where it is blocked and dormant, then this energy starts rising up through the chakras. And then the consciousness starts opening up at the same time. So for example, we say that there are 7 chakras in the system and the energy flows through these chakras, creating the body-mind experience. Body in the sense of pranic movement and mind in the sense of all the mental experiences that we have, they are related to the chakras. Mm-hmm. Each mental experience is related to a particular chakra. Mm-hmm. For example, emotions, they are related to the heart chakra. But the same emotions with our selfish desire, that I want, that goes down to the Swadhisthana chakra.
Interesting.
Muladhara is our basic instinct. We are all born with basic instinct. So when the mind is caught with those kind of thoughts, the energy is moving into that chakra alone. But we have the entire spectrum of 7 chakras to play with. And that is why even in the Vedas and the Puranas, they say the gods, they have to come down to be born as humans to rise to the highest consciousness. Wow. Because God are stuck into a higher consciousness, but they are not able to reach the highest. Interesting. So they have to come down because only in human frame we have this possibility of the entire spectrum. We can stay with our instincts or we can play with our intuition that guides us from the higher consciousness. So Tantra is opening up all the chakras, experiencing the full human potential and opening up the consciousness to the level that it just kind of speeds up our understanding, and we are able to see the world in the form of energy and consciousness, and that is the dance of Shiva. And then we see that this world is a field of Leela. It is not a field of bondage or pain that other systems are talking about. So Tantra is quite a vast system, but its basic principle is that if we are able to liberate the energy where it is stuck in the system, then we can open the higher levels of consciousness. And that gives us a human potential that is far beyond our normal capacity. And we can rise not just to the level of devas or the divine demigods, but even beyond into the pure consciousness.
Amazing, amazing.
So using this concept, Tantra gives us a lot of different tools and processes. So it becomes like a science that you can use mantra, you can use yantra, which is like sacred geometry and the images that create an impression in the mind, and the mind gets into that regular pattern. Or we can use the sound vibration, or we can use all this asana pranayam using the awareness of the chakras and their geometrical forms, patterns. Tantra is immense. It's like a science of consciousness. And eventually, it's not surprising that a lot of scientists, when they discover something new in quantum physics, they find some reference in Tantra.
Interesting, interesting. Wow.
When they discovered some extraordinary particles and energy waves during this experiment at CERN, the Higgs boson.
Yeah.
The only image they could relate to was dancing Shiva, where creation and destruction is happening at the same time. Yes.
And I know that's why they have a Lord Nataraja, I think, at the CERN, right? I think there was a big image.
Exactly. There's a beautiful image of Lord Nataraja at CERN.
Fantastic, fantastic. I am a dancer, so Lord Nataraja is my Ishta Devata. So
wonderful. You see, yeah, Tantra is not just a science of consciousness, it also is something that has guided the Indian culture in arts and in poetry and in so many different ways. The temple rituals that are happening, that is based on the tantric philosophy and mudras and all that. Why do we put the water in the copper? Because it gets charged up with that, and then you offer just a spoonful of water, and then immediately transforms your energy field. It protects you. It becomes a strong immune system. So there are so many scientific principles in Tantra, but it also kind of flowed into the Indian cultural field. The dance and the music, so much came from that belief of consciousness and energy as Shiva and Shakti.
Fantastic. Oh my goodness. Now I think this is not how it is. The words are not spread in this way. So thank you for, clarifying that to us. And now I know that as you have not, quote unquote, had a stable ashram. You're a wandering yogi. I mean, after working with your Guruji, you have just been a wandering yogi. What motivated you to do that? And I hear that you spend time with different families. You actually live with them and have lived with, I don't know, thousands during your time. So what is the motivation for the wandering and doing the, spreading of the information as you do?
You see, the system of sannyas that was started by Adi Shankaracharya, he codified it properly. And he said that a sannyasi should not stay in one place after learning from the guru, because not everybody can go to an ashram to learn. So there was this tradition of wandering sannyasis called the Parivrajak that he set up. And he said after spending time with the guru, traditional is 12 years, the sannyasi should travel around. So Adi Shankaracharya, he himself traveled the length and the breadth of India, establishing all these mathas and centers of learning. So the tradition is just about spreading this knowledge and opening it up to whoever is interested and reaching out. And in those times, even though it was not easy to travel during the time of Adi Shankaracharya, we are talking of the 7th and the 8th century. But still, he kept to the rule that you don't spend more than 3 days with one family, because then there is possibility of attachment. So you can imagine, when I travel internationally, it's not easy to follow that rule, but I try to follow it as much as possible. So then I travel crazy when I travel through US, Europe, but basically the idea is to spread the true knowledge of yoga. It's not creating a religion, but it's just like opening people's mind to this possibility of a spiritual journey and a path and a process. And it has been an incredible experience for me to spend time and live with, as you rightly said, more than 1,000 family. I would say that would be at least like 2,000-3,000 family during my travel that I've stayed with.
Wow.
So to plug and unplug from their story and to move on then, but stay connected over time, that has been an incredible experience.
Wow. So do you think that every Swami, are they on journey, or it's like there is enlightenment that has happened and, I don't know, is there growth every day, or I don't know what that is, but I would love to learn from you your path and your journey forward.
You see, not all the Swamis go into this Parivrajak life, because even as Swami, they develop attachment or they develop fear. that I am safe in ashram. If I go out, who will support me?
Oh, wow.
So very few Swamis actually go for Parivrajak nowadays.
Interesting.
So you don't find a lot of Parivrajak sannyasis. And it all depends on your personal sadhana, how much you want to continue. And uh, it's a daily experience. You don't want to fall back into the lower levels of consciousness. So it's a continuous, it's not a struggle, because after some time when you experience the beauty of higher consciousness, it just becomes a habit that yes, I need to do my daily yoga, I need to do my meditation, and then I need to reach out, because the true happiness lies when you are working for others. So I do whatever necessary to keep my body, mind, my heart fit, and then whatever I can do to share with others. So that is the real blessing and happiness.
So that is your motivation to share, because otherwise, once you have touched your consciousness, that it doesn't seem like there's a purpose, right? So, but Swami still have a
No, sorry, I would stop you here. There
yeah.
is a purpose, and
Yeah.
that is a higher purpose. It's a spiritual purpose. Because normally we think in terms of like worldly purpose, that okay, I want to achieve enlightenment. After that, what? So we are thinking in that terms that okay, now there is the end, but after that, what? No, after that, the real journey starts from then on, because then you are living your spiritual karmas. Till then, we are thinking of our worldly karmas, and there is a goal, enlightenment, or an experience, a glimpse, or samadhi. But after that, and that has been beautifully explained in the Upanishad, and Lord Krishna put it very nicely: Lok Sangraha, do Lok Sangraha.
Beautiful, beautiful. Wow. That's very, very interesting. And I know that one of the things that you've done every year is go to Mount Kailash and take people with you. I know Lord Nataraja is certainly seems to be an Ishtadevta. Could you tell us why Mount Kailash, and why do you take people with you to that every single year?
That's a very good question, and I appreciate that you asked that, because when I went to Mount Kailash for the first time, and of course we hear that this is the place of Lord Shiva and his family where they live. So the amount of spiritual energy this place has, it's incredible. It's in a very difficult terrain to go, because it's high altitude desert, and there is no vegetation. There is this lake and snow-capped mountains, and it's a desolate countryside in the Western Tibet. But it's not just the belief system that I went for. It was experiencing the energy field, and that was incredible. And then I felt that when I finished my first yatra, I thought, okay, this is it. Because a lot of Indians, they crave for at least one visit to Kailash.
Yeah.
And I felt this is it. So on my return, I was standing in Lake Manasarovar, and I offered water looking at Kailash, that thank you for giving me this wonderful opportunity. And I heard very clearly, you have to come back again. And I was not sure why, because that time I went alone with a regular tour company. And then when I was returning back to Kathmandu, then I realized that he's saying you have to help other people to come and experience this. Because the high altitude and the desert climate and everything, it's very difficult. And people are interested. And my specialty is yoga. So then that helped me evolve the yoga for high altitude. And then I was able to take people. For last 12 years, I have been doing Kailash Yatra, and maybe 400, 500 people have joined me over this 12 years trip. But every year has been a blessing, and the real satisfaction is that I am helping people to experience this place. Otherwise, people don't even think of going there.
Right, right. Well, hopefully things will change, and maybe, who knows? I was talking to Ritu that maybe we'll join you on one of these,
Oh, yeah.
God willing, and you probably know. And speaking of special times, this is a very unusual time. So, from your view, what do you think? Why did this happen? And what is the way forward? How should people handle this? Because it's perhaps the most difficult thing for most people. So, what are your thoughts on that, and what advice would you give to people?
I think this is a kind of the biggest challenge that our generation is facing, people who are alive at this time. And there must be something in the background, like the way we have misused all the natural resources. So earth and the resources, they had to reset themselves. So whether we believe in a higher consciousness or not, but there is a cosmic order of things. And we have been, as human beings, given the freedom, and we are misusing that freedom. So I think this is the time for self-correction. And for us in this time to realize that, okay, we have done a mistake and we don't do it again. First of all, to stay alive, we need to be taking all the precautions and stay safe. Don't go out with too much bravado that nothing will happen to you. And you have the example there in USA now. I don't want to take the name, but you have that. Even if you see, this virus doesn't take care of any religion or caste. It's just equal to everybody. So it's neutral. All we need to do is, there are two options that we have. One is to cry that, oh, this is the situation, I am locked down. Other is to realize that never in our lifetime we have this kind of opportunity where we have so much time for our own spiritual unfoldment, the journey that we can take inside, because there is so much time now. So either we can cry or we can spend time watching TV and all the same news over and over again and get into more hypertension and more negative thinking, or we can shut it down and then we can look inside. So during my time here, I'm doing online programs and I'm just helping people to realize that this is a wonderful opportunity, that we were so much kind of drowned into that spiritual, the material and the unhealthy lifestyle. And this is a divine message to do the course correction. And this is the time to look into the spiritual side of things and to realize that, yes, it's not that we are in control of everything. There is a higher force that is controlling things.
Wow, wow. So I'll just ask you a quick question that always has puzzled me. When I read the Bhagavad Gita, the verse, Mamai Vamsho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha Manashashtani Indriyani Prakriti. How did we come? Why is it that we left the divine consciousness? Those of us who are on earth, what force brought us the first time? I know once we are here, the karmas are there, but I'm always curious about that, and I would love your insight into that, Swamiji.
In Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna talks about Maya, his power, his own power. And this is the power that deludes us into the sense of like we have the control, we always have the choice. And because of that, we fall from that higher level of consciousness into our own greed, our own desires, our own vasanas, instincts. And then what happens is that we are lost into that tamas, into that darkness. And in the same Gita, you find so much reference to what happens to people when they are in tamas. And particularly in this Kali Yuga, tamas is the strongest dominant force. So then we have to make effort to get out of it. And that is also indicated in Gita. And this is what Gita is about, that all the choices have been laid out in front of Arjuna. At the end of it, Krishna says, now choose what you like. I have told you the secret of the secrets. Now choose what you like. So those who will read Gita, they will definitely be inspired to move into the right path if they understood it right. And those who want to look for loopholes into Gita, they will always look for it. So the choice is always in our hands. And once we make the right choice, then we open up to that divine grace. Till then, the divine grace appears to be like, we don't need it as long we are happy, so-called happy in our worldly sensual desires. But that is just a temporary happiness. It is not the bliss. It is not the ananda. And Krishna has given the true path of ananda, that you have to transcend the gunas. But before that, from tamas, you have to rise up to rajas, and then from there into sattva. So people have to make effort. And it's also made easy that we don't have to do intense sadhana like the rishis and the yogis of the past. It says just do your Maha Mantra, or just do a little worship daily, or a 20 minutes meditation. Forget about 3-hour meditation that was a requirement. Even in the time of Swami Shivananda 60, 70 years back, it was a requirement for the sannyasis. When we came, they said, okay, at least half an hour. And now we say 10 minutes. And when I do program, people say, can you do meditation in 5 minutes?
In the age of Twitter, right? We have to work
Yes.
in that.
Now, you see, when I used to do programs in USA at the university, I used to get a clear message that speak only for 20 minutes. That is the attention span. And this was like maybe 7, 8 years back when I did program in Princeton and Harvard and all that. Now, when I say that let's do a program, they say 2 minutes. Your main points in 2 minutes. That is the focus span. And this is all because of Twitter and WhatsApp.
Sure, sure, sure.
We are in
Maybe the Lord is
craziness.
asking us to be more efficient. I don't know.
Yeah, well, Lord is also showing us the way that we are going to fall from our own mental stability and balance. Too
Good.
much of this, too much of this internet stuff is problem.
You're absolutely right. And that brings me to my, probably my final question. And I would love your insights on where to from here. What advice do you have? I think humanity is very ready for advice at this stage. And what advice would you give, especially to the younger people, who are just now, coming out of college or, and they're worried a little bit. So what advice would you give everybody?
You see, the human life, according to our Sanatan tradition, it is made up of two major paths, and we have to balance both. One is called the path of prayers, of the pleasurable, and then earth and calm. These two purusharthas are part of that. So we have to learn the right way of making the money. We need to have knowledge for that also. So it's a good idea to spend time and also effort into proper studies and also find a balanced way of fulfilling your desires. But it has to be counterbalanced with the other side, which is the Shreyas, which is the ultimate good. And that is dharma and moksha. So only when these four wheels are balanced, only then a person can actually move forward in life in a balanced way. And this is a time to come back to that fundamental understanding again. And what I would suggest to the young generation and even the older generation, out of 24 hours that you have, spend 1 hour with yourself into your own yoga, your meditation, your self-culture, and maybe reading some books of good inspiration, connecting with the scriptures that have guided the humanity for thousands of years. So something like that. And I'm not asking or saying for more, just 1 hour in 24-hour cycle. Rest 23 hours you spend in all your material life and sleeping and reading and WhatsApping and whatever. But at least 1 hour for self-culture. And even that 1 hour over time, you will notice that it creates such a solid foundation in your spiritual life that you feel stable. Otherwise, with this kind of pandemic and also the uncertainty of our times, a lot of people will be just simply swept away into depression, into frustration. And I see possibility of like a civil war in a lot of countries that are not able to, for the leaders who are not able to lead it properly.
Beautiful. And as a beginning, would you say yoga? I'm hearing a little bit of yoga and maybe the Bhagavad Gita. Are there good starting points, you would say?
Yes. Yoga as a practical science for self culture in terms of health, in terms of building up a strong emotional immune system. When I say emotional immune system, when you do yoga, you create a nice energy field around yourself. So you protect yourself from the negative thoughts of other people. So that aura that we call, that energy field builds spontaneously when you are regular with your yoga. The other thing is mental culture that is guided by some good book or scriptures. So Srimad Bhagavad Gita has guided so many people, and not just religious people or spiritual people, but also scientists. So Einstein has quoted on Bhagavad Gita when the first atomic explosion was done, then Oppenheimer quoted Bhagavad Gita. So it is something that really guides us into a higher level of thinking and perception. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, the perception that we have of the world right now with all this problem, it's falling down to a very low animal instinct level. So it may just come down to survival, but we as human beings have the potential that we can work. So for that, we need some kind of inspiration and scriptures. And that is why in Yoga Sutras, it says Swadhyay, self-analysis and also study of the scriptures. Because human mind, we produce at least like 3,000 thoughts in an hour.
Wow.
That is what neuroscience has discovered, between 2,500 to 3,000 thoughts in an hour. So imagine the amount of energy that is being used in the mind. But if we bring positive thought and we just allow the mind to churn that positive thought, then we can move into a higher understanding and experience.
Beautiful.
So Srimad Bhagavad Gita is a good, very good text. Then those who are inclined into seeing a little more of the spiritual life than Upanishads, there are a lot of Upanishads.
Beautiful. And Swamiji, I know you teach continuously, especially now virtually. Do you welcome all of us to come and take your classes? Is that,
Of course, yeah,
and
it's open for everybody. Yeah.
where would
And,
we go to get started with it? Is there a website that
I have a blog spot. It's Wandering Mahesh. Because I'm in wandering stage, so it's simple, wanderingmahesh.blogspot.com. And for this Navratri, we are planning for a program where multiple teachers will be available to do yoga programs, meditation, mantra chant, and also little satsang to inspire people during this Navratri. So that information will come on my blog in a day or two. We are planning, and it will be multiple teachers across the world to give the right time to people in their own country, in their own time zone.
Fantastic. Fantastic, Swamiji. I cannot thank you enough for taking time out to meet with me. And really, I can see that your advice has been very useful for me, and I'm sure for all our viewers. So thank you so much, Swamiji.